Hi, welcome to the Gemara on Tet Vav Amud Bet. We're starting 4 lines down in the section where the lines get wider. This is a review video of material that you learned in Chavruta and was reviewed for you by your peers in class. We're beginning with the pasuk from Megillah Esther. V'ta'amod b'chatzar beit hamelech hapnimit. Esther stood in the inner courtyard of the king. Amar Rabbi Levi. Rabbi Levi says, Kivan shehigia lebeit hatzlamim, nistalka himena shchina. When she got to the house of statues, the Shekhinah left her. So apparently Achashverosh had some kind of idol worship set up in his courtyard. She got there and the Shekhinah, the divine presence, left her. Amra, so she said to herself, Keli, Keli, lama azavtani. God, my God, why have you left me? This is from a Mizmor in Tehillim. Rashi tells us this is the Mizmor Ayelet HaShachar. It's in the Mizmor that starts out with the words Ayelet HaShachar, which is thought of as a reference to Esther, and that's why this whole Mizmor is sort of fair game for interpreting as being about the story of Esther. So here's what Esther's saying. Shema atadan al shogeg kemezid. Maybe you're judging an accidental transgression as though it was purposeful. Val ones karatzon, and a sort of forced situation as though it were purposeful. So maybe that's why you, as the Shekhinah, has left me. And Rashi here says, al ones, afal pishani ba elav me'elai, onesu. Even though I've sort of willingly agreed to come to Achashverosh, it's still a situation of onus. I'm still forced into this position. I don't really want to. If I really had a choice, I would not. Oh, Shema al Shekarativ Kelev. Or she says, maybe it's because I called him, meaning Achashverosh, a dog. Shine Emar, Hitzila Micherev Nafshi, Miyad Kelev Yechidati. So again, same Mizmor in Tehillim, interpreted as being a reference to Esther. The pasuk is down here with all the other references from Tehillim. Deliver my soul from the sword, my only one from the power of the dog. So maybe it's like sort of an insult to the throne that she called Achashverosh a dog. Chazra v'karato aryeh. So she goes back and calls him a lion. Later in the same Mizmor, Hoshieni mipi aryeh. She says, save me from the mouth of the lion. That's a more respectful way to refer to the king. So those are all answers to what might be going through Esther's head it's a response to the fact that the Shekhinah leaves her and what might be going through Esther's head as a result of that. When the king saw Esther the queen, this is continuing in Megillah Esther. So this is when he stretches out his scepter to her, and had he not stretched out the scepter, she would have been sentenced to death, but he's actually happy to see her. Amar Rabbi Yochanan, there were 3 angels, ministering angels, that came to her at that moment. Echad shehigbia et savara, one that kind of straightened, held up her neck, helped her keep her chin up. Ve'echad shemashach chut shel chesed aleha, and one that stretched out a strand of chesed on her, a strand of kindness upon her, made her look attractive to people. Ve'echad shematzach et hasharbit, and one that stretched out the scepter. So it was really angels at work. V'kama, and how far did the scepter get stretched out? Amar Rabbi Yirmiyah, shtei amot haya, v'hamido al shtei masreh. It was really 2 amot, and they made it into 12 amot. The angel stretched it out into 12 amot, so made it longer. The amrila al sheshesreh, and some say that the angel stretched it out to as long as 16 amot. The amrila, and some say Alasrim ve'arba. No, it was really 24 amot. This kind of midrashic hyperbole that we find a lot in this section, which I mentioned to you in class, I think of as a similar exercise to the Haggadah trying to say it was more than 10 plagues, it was this many, it was that many, it was bigger and bigger and bigger. It sort of extends the miracle. But Manitza Tana, we learned in a Braita, al shishim, that it actually was stretched out to 60. And you find this also with the arm of Pharaoh's daughter, because Rashi will tell you that famously Pharaoh's daughter stretches out her arm, let's say, to get the basket that has baby Moses, and the idea is that her arm had to lengthen in order to reach Moshe. So same idea there. And you find the same thing with the teeth of the wicked. Tichtiv, as it says in Tehillim, Shinei Rishayim Shibarta, which literally means you've broken the teeth of the Rishayim. Ba'amar Reish Lakish, but Reish Lakish says, Al tikri shivarta, ella shirivavta. Don't read this as you broke, but rather you elongated. That the teeth of the Roshaim have been elongated. Rashi gives you this story that comes from elsewhere in the Gemara, that in Masechet Brachot, that this was something that happened with Og Melech HaBashan, with Og, this evil king, who wanted to destroy the Jews. He picked up a mountain to throw it onto the Jews, Lashichol al Yisrael, and it got put onto his head, and God sent... He put it on top of his head, and God sent Nimalim, God sent ants, to make a hole in it so that it fell down over his neck. It became sort of like a donut around his neck. Bikesh Shamto, he tried to push it off, but his teeth got really long, like sort of out to the sides, and then he couldn't push it up anymore. He couldn't push it off. And so that's the proof that the teeth of the Rishaim were elongated, much like the scepter to accept Esther. Rabbi Bar Ofran Omar Mishum Rabbi Eliezer, Shishamar Mirabo, that's not where I want to be. So Rabbi Bar Ofran says in the name of Rabbi Eliezer, who heard from his teacher Mirabo, Rabo Mirabo, and his teacher from his teacher Ma'atayim, that it's really 200. Okay, so we've now discussed at length how long the scepter was. A combination of a few psukim, but basically the king says to Esther, I'll do anything you want, I'll even give you up to half the kingdom. Chatzi ha-malchut v'lo kol ha-malchut. He says half and not the whole thing. That's a question, really, right? Why not the whole thing? So really what he's saying is v'lo davar shechotzetz la-malchut, not the thing which splits the kingdom, not the thing which is in the middle of the kingdom. Umay nihu, and what is that thing? Binyan beit hamikdash. That is actually the temple. Because Rashi tells you, lo davar shechotzetz v'malchut binyan habayit shehu be'emtza ha'olam. Right, the bayit, the Beit HaMikdash is in the middle of the world, and Achashverosh basically rules the whole world. So that thing in the middle, he's like, I'm not going to give you the Temple Mount. Moving on in the Megillah, Yavo HaMelech v'Haman el HaMishteh. The king and Haman should come to a party, right? This is Esther making her invitation. Tana Rabbanan, we learned in a Braita, Mara ata Esther shezimna et Haman. Why did Esther invite Haman, right? Why is this her strategy? Why is this a good strategy? Why is this what she does? Rabbi Eliezer Omer, Pachim Tamnalo. So Rabbi Eliezer says she was out to get him. She was like setting a trap for him. Shne'emar, Yehi shulchanam lifnehem lepach. Their tables should be before them like a trap. This is from Tehillim, talking about wicked people. They should be sort of trapped by their own table. You can see that down here. Their table before them should become a snare. When they're in peace, let it become a trap. So she got this idea basically from Tehillim. She wanted to trap him. Rabbi Yeshua Omer, mi beit aviha lamda. She learned it in her father's house. Shene Amar, as it says in Mishlei, im ra'av sonecha hechiluhu lechem v'gomer. It's like, be nice to your enemies. It's best to be nice to them. That's a good way of conquering them. She learned that in her father's house. Rashi points out, mi beit aviha lamda. Her parents were dead, right? We learned that she basically never lived in her parents' house. They were dead as soon as she was born. Shema hatino kotom rimken. She heard young children saying this, meaning she learned it as a child, like from other kids in her childhood. Rabbi Meir Omer, Kedei shelo yitol etzav v'yimrod, so that he won't get an idea into his head and rebel. Rashi tells you here on Vayimrod, B'melech shahita sha'ato mitzlachat, because like things are going so well for him right now, maybe he'll rebel against the king. She doesn't want him off on his own as a loose cannon. She wants to sort of make him happy and keep him close. Rabbi Yehuda Omer, Kedei shelo yokiru ba shehi Yehudit, so they won't recognize that she's a Jew. Presumably, right, the fact that she's inviting him to the party will further distance the possibility from his mind that she could potentially be Jewish, if he would ever entertain that thought. Rabbi Nechemia Omer, Kedei shelo yomru Yisrael, achot yesh lanu bebeit hamelech ve'yasichu da'atan min harachamim, so that the Jews won't say, we have a sister in the king's house, and then stop praying. Meaning the Jews might be like, you know what? Everything's really going to be fine. We don't really need to pray. We don't really need to repent. Esther's there. She's going to take care of us. No, when they see her inviting Haman, they're going to be like, uh-oh, maybe she's gone over to the dark side, and they will continue to pray for mercy. Rabbi Yossi Omer, K'dei shehem etzui la b'chol et, so that he'll always be with her at every moment, basically so she can keep an eye on him. She doesn't want to let her out of his sight. Rabbi Shimon ben Manasseh Omer, Ulai yargish hamakom v'yaseh lanu nes. Maybe God will notice and do a miracle for us. Like if she's inviting Haman, she must be pretty desperate, so maybe God will sense that and do a miracle. Rabbi Yeshua ben Karcha Omer, Asbir lo panim, k'dei she'arog hu v'hi. I'll smile at him, I'll be nice to him, so that both of us will be killed. Basically, Achashverosh will be suspicious. She'areg hu v'hi, she'chashdeni hamelech mimenu, ve'arog et shnenu. The king will suspect us, will suspect me of adultery, basically, and will kill both of us. And it's kind of like she's willing to sacrifice herself, right? I'll be dead, but at least Haman will also be dead. Rabban Gamliel Omer, Melech hafach v'chan haya. The king was, he was very fickle. He was a very fickle king. He changed his mind all the time. And Rashi explains this, v'chozer b'diburo. He changes his mind. He goes back on what he said. So she said to herself, Amra, Shema uchal liftoto v'lahargo, v'im lo yehem mezuman ta'avor hasha'ah v'yachzor bo. Like, let's say I can convince the king to kill Haman, but if he's not actually there so the king can act on it right away, an hour later the king will change his mind and it won't actually happen. I need Haman right there for the killing. Amar Rabban Gamliel, let's just say Rabban Gamliel, Adayin tzrichin anu l'modai. We still need the opinion of the modai, Titania, as we learned in Braita. Rabbi Eliezer HaModai Omer, so Rabbi Eliezer the Modai said, this is the opinion we need. Kinato b'melech, kinato b'sarim. It's going to invoke the jealousy of both the Sarim and the king. Basically, everyone will come to hate him. Both the kings and the other Sarim are going to be like, why is Haman being promoted in this way? Rabba Amar, Lifnei Shever Gaon, a verse from Mishlei, pride comes before downfall. So Esther sort of knew that from Mishlei and was like, well, I'll make him really proud and then hopefully he'll have a downfall. Abaye v'Rava de Amri Travayu, and Abaye and Rava both said, Bechomam ashit et mishlehem v'gomer. This is a pasuk from Yirmiyahu, and according to Rashi, this pasuk references some previous kings of Persia. Let's look at the Rashi. Al Belshazzar v'siyato ne'emar b'shuvam min hamilchama. So it's on Belshazzar and his party when they came back from war. Shedayavish v'Koresh hayut sarin al Bavel v'nitzchan Belshazzar. Dayavish and Koresh were laying siege to Bavel. Belshazzar conquers them. That day, Vahayu ayafim v'chamim, and they're very hot and tired. V'yashvu lishdot, and they sit down to drink. V'nishtachru, and they get drunk. Uve'oto yom neharag, and that very day they get killed. V'af Esther amra mitoch mishtehen shel rashaim ba'alahem parnud. So Esther thought to herself, maybe if I make them a big party and they'll get drunk, something bad will happen afterwards. It's sort of like this historical precedent for that. Ashkechei Rabba bar Avua le'Eliyahu. Rabba bar Avua found Eliyahu Hanavi. Amar Lai, and he said to him, Kiman chazia Esther va'avdahachi. Who did Esther see like? Meaning, whose opinion was she thinking of? Va'avdahachi, and did this. Like, which one was her actual motivation? Amar Lei, so Eliyahu Hanavi says back to him, Kechulu Tanai v'kechulu Amarai. All of them. She was thinking about all of them. She had all those thoughts and minds when she acted in this way. Moving on in Megillah Esther, V'yisaper lehem Haman et kvodo v'rov banav. This is Haman telling his admirers about all of what he has, including all of his sons. V'kama rov banav. How many sons did he have? What does that mean, rov banav? Amarav Lamed Shloshim. He had 30 sons. Asara metu, 10 died. V'asara nitlu, 10 get hanged. That's later in the Megillah. V'asara mechazrin al haptachim, and 10 become beggars. V'Rabbanan amri, otan shemechazrin al haptachim, shiv'im havya. The ones who were beggars, there were actually 70 of them. Tichtiv, because it says in Shmuel, sve'im belechem. There literally means they're full from bread. But you can read sve'im as shiv'im, and then it means 70, which would mean altogether there were actually 90 sons. Rashi tells you here, Sve'im Belechem, Yonatan's here Gam al Banav Shel Haman, that when Yonatan creates the Targum, the Aramaic translation of this verse, we learned about that earlier in the year, he interprets it as being about the sons of Haman, and that's why we make this midrashic association. That should be Sve'im Belechem Niskaru. So Al Tikri Al Tikri Sve'im El Shiv'im, don't read it as full, rather as 70. For Rami Bar Abba Amar, Kulan Ma'atayim Vishmona Havu. Altogether there were 208. Shnei Amar, because it says Virov Banav. It says that phrase, Virov Banav, Virov B'Gematria Ma'atan V'Arbesar Havu. But Rov in Gematria is actually 214. Amar Rav Nachman Bar Yitzchak, Virov Ktiv, it's written, this is the way it's actually written in the verse. It's written without that middle vav, and that's why the Gematria is actually 208, and that is how many sons Haman had. Okay, that's the end of this section. This all corresponds to sheet number 7.